Hello, everyone. We're delighted to have you join us today. I'm Gail Brechting, President of the Association of Concert Bands, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to this installment of ACB Connects. These sessions are sponsored by the Association of Concert Bands, an international nonprofit organization whose mission is to foster excellence in concert band music through performance, education, and advocacy. We have just a few items before we begin today's discussion. ACB Connects is being recorded. Today's session will be archived along with other previously recorded sessions on the ACB Connects page of our website. Please take a moment to locate the chat. Tell us your name, where you're from, and what band you play in. We welcome your questions. If you have any questions or comments for our guest today, submit them in the chat addressed to everyone, and as many as time allows will be answered. We will share links and documents in the chat during the session. If you are viewing the recording, these links will appear along with the recording. If you're joining us live today, you'll be able to see and save the chat. With us today are 5 conductors of ACB member bands. From Chicago, we have Sarah Good Mosley and Mark Mosley, who started the Windy City Winds. From California, Stephanie Sugano, conductor of the Roseville Community Concert Band. Joining us from Oregon is President-elect Michael Burch-Pesses, conductor of the Oregon Symphonic Band. And in San Antonio, Texas, Mark Rogers, founder and conductor of the Heart of Texas Concert Band. Welcome, conductors. We will have about 20 to 30 minutes on each topic today. We want to hear from all 5 of our guests on each topic. I'll keep an eye on the time and encourage each to speak between 3 to 5 minutes on the topics. The topics today are rehearsal management, band membership, audience development and engagement, and programming. Now, Michael, I think I'd like you to start speaking first on some of the topics of rehearsal management. And some of the things that we have bullet points on are things of this nature. Planning, like your pre and post rehearsal. Do you record your rehearsals with video or do any streaming? Sending references, links like recordings of the music you're doing to your members. Do you use any apps like Remind apps or Band app? What are some of your section leaders, or if you have them, responsibilities, maybe a band manager, and maybe setup and breakdown? Some of those ideas are in this idea of rehearsal management. So Michael, the floor is yours.
Well, it's a great subject. I have to say that for us, rehearsal management really begins before the rehearsal. We send the music out to everybody at least 3 weeks prior to our first rehearsal. We have a remarkable librarian who collects the music, puts it in the folders, and delivers it to a local music store that has agreed to keep our music for us. The members of the band come in at their convenience, pick the music up, so they have time to work on it before the first rehearsal. We only do 4 rehearsals before each concert series. We have 3 concert series per year, plus summer concerts. And it's really important that everybody know their music before that first rehearsal. If the librarian comes in with a box of music that hasn't been picked up, and everybody boos the people that didn't pick up their music ahead of time. So it's a little public embarrassment, but that's an incentive for them to get the music and work on it before the first rehearsal. You know, the cardinal rule of rehearsal is you don't go to rehearsal to learn your part. You go to rehearsal to find out how your part fits in with everything else. And I give a lot of responsibility to my section leaders. We do have section leaders in the band. And the section leaders essentially manage everybody in their section. They select people for each concert series. If somebody gets sick or can't attend for whatever reason, the section leader has a list of subs to call on. We have a long list of subs in every section. So when we get to that first rehearsal, we should have a full band. And the band is between 60 and 65 players. I'm the third conductor of the band. The band started in 1986. And a lot of these things were in place before I came. And I've pretty much let them go that way. In terms of new players in the band, the section leaders decide who is going to come and audition. And I listen in, and they either make it or they put on a little farther down on the sub list. During rehearsal, there's virtually no talking. We have a 2-hour rehearsal 4 times before each concert series. And we try to make the best use of our time. And I never have to tell anybody to be quiet so that we can get on with the music. Everybody else in their section is doing this. You be quiet now. So the spirits are high. We laugh a lot in our rehearsals, and we get a great deal done because there's very little wasted time. The makeup of the band is such that there really are no weak players. We are one of perhaps 4 community bands in our area. And there's a lot of people in the Portland, Vancouver area who want to take part in community bands. I think that's wonderful. I've always felt that community bands are the ultimate result of music education. And all these people, they're not professional musicians. They're doctors and lawyers. In fact, one of the founding members of my band, he still plays tuba in the band, is a railroad engineer. So they come from all walks of life, and they just don't want to give up music. And I think that's wonderful. We're really very, very lucky.
Wonderful, Michael. That all sounds great. Let's see what some other people might have, some other things that they do, but feel free, Michael, to come in and add in as some of these other folks speak about this. Sarah and Mark, what are some of the things that happen in Chicago? Let's go from Oregon to Chicago now.
Well, one of the bullet points on there about recording rehearsals, we do record our rehearsals and listen back to them, ourselves to review, because you certainly try to catch everything as a conductor, but you can't necessarily remember everything. And so it's a good, a good way for us to go back and prepare for the next week. We haven't given them access to our members, but I'm beginning to think that might also be a good idea. Let them hear a little bit about how the rehearsal went that week or whatever, and maybe they can also get some good information or feedback from that for themselves as well.
That's fantastic. Go ahead.
Recently went with the idea of passing out we have 2 sets of folders. So we pass out the folder for the next concert just prior to the performance of the first concert. So the people again have some time. Now, we take a break in December, so we pass that out, and they had all of December to prepare for the first week of January. We didn't take a break in our last performance, so the week after the concert was the first real read-through of everything. That's I think that's working out well for us, and so now we're trying to build the folders for the summer.
Just one additional thing I'll say is that we do use the Remind app for ourselves, mostly for the summer, because we often end up with rain dates, or we get rained out, and because we're not playing indoors, obviously. So we use that to communicate mostly for the summer.
Or rainouts.
Yeah.
Thank you. Do either Stephanie or Mark Rogers, do either of you use any of the apps like that for your ensembles?
We don't use an app for maintaining contact with our members, but we do have section leaders, and we send out usually weekly email reminders about the upcoming rehearsals that are coming up. We are more active than a lot of the other groups in that we do 8 or 9 concerts a year, and during the spring months, we do a concert every 4 weeks. So for instance, last Sunday, we did a concert and we passed out music for the next performance at that concert. So that members were able to pick up their envelopes of music. So they don't have a lot of time to look at music ahead of time. They had 2 days. The concert was on Sunday and our rehearsals are on Tuesday night. but we do also, whenever possible, send out listening links. And one of the things that we expect members to do is to go out there and listen to those things. And we work as hard as we can to make sure that the listening links are appropriate. For instance, the next concert is all music of Leroy Anderson. And some of the recordings that he made of his pieces with symphony orchestras go like lightning. And there's no way that our band will manage those tempos. So I listen to as many different recordings as I can to try to find one that is appropriate, so I don't have too many band members panicking, thinking, are we really going to play that at 160? Because we won't.
Yeah, exactly. One of the questions just came up, and maybe Stephanie, you could start with answering this question within this topic, was how many rehearsals do each of your different bands have between the first one to the performance, was the question.
Sure. Well, kind of like what Mark said, we do about probably 8 or 9 performances a year. And sometimes it'll be a month and a half before a concert that we start rehearsing, and some will be just 2 weeks before, depending on what performance it is. I mean, we may have like a Veterans Day gig, which follows one of our silent movie performances just within a couple weeks. And so I try to keep as much, music ahead of time in the folders as possible. And of course, it's, efficient to reuse pieces if we need to. I wish I was organized enough to get the whole season in the folders ahead of time, but a lot of times we're just passing out new music at rehearsals. As far as what people were saying before, we don't use the Remind app. It's definitely a great idea, and I'd love to hear more about people utilizing that within your community band. But we just have section leaders as well keep track of our section with emails and phone numbers. I have everybody's contact information too, but I don't really want that responsibility of doing that on my own. So we definitely utilize section leaders for that.
Wonderful. Let's talk for a moment about some of the things, perhaps, or I guess one of the first questions that I kind of got out of sync here was, do any of you do any streaming for your rehearsals? We're not talking concerts right now. Does anyone stream because of the pandemic? I know there are some community bands around that started streaming the rehearsals for the people that felt okay, but just didn't feel like they should be at rehearsal. Does anybody else do that?
We did that as we started back up from COVID, for that very reason, but we haven't continued.
I don't know if you call it a streaming, but it was a Zoom rehearsal, basically.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but
depends on how you do it.
It's better to have special mics and different, it was used to some extent, but not a.
Okay, that's fantastic. Thank you for those of you who shared that. Setup and breakdown ideas. Is that something that, do you have a room that is always set up and you can just walk into, and then do you have to break it down? Talk about that a little bit amongst this topic. Michael?
Sorry, would you say that again, please?
Oh, sure. When you have rehearsals, how is it that you set up and break down? Is it already all set up because you're in a facility that has that, or is that a crew of your own?
We have a crew. We have a crew of 4 people that set up the chairs and stands and also make sure that the large percussion instruments are in place and ready to go. We do rehearse in a school, and at the end of each rehearsal, we set the chairs and stands up for the first class the next morning. So we have a diagram for that, but we do have a crew to take care of setting things up ahead of time.
Every time. And are they the same people every time?
Fortunately, we have people who are happy to work at that. And when they work at that, then they don't get tapped to do something.
Great. Mark Rogers, you had your hand up there.
I put together a seating chart, which stays basically the same from concert to concert. We rehearse in a middle school band room, and our band is large. For the last concert, we were approaching 100 pieces. And so it's very critical that we get everything set up ahead of time, because if someone comes in an hour early to warm up or something like that, and they pick a place in the middle of the band room, well, then we just kind of have to work around them. And so our setup crew is almost always done an hour and 15 minutes before the downbeat of the rehearsal. And of course, at the end of the rehearsal, then we, like Michael said, we have to prepare the room for the first band rehearsal the next morning.
Okay, thank you very much, Stephanie.
We rehearse in my band room, so and my band's not nearly as big as Mark's, but I wanted to share what we do for concerts. For concerts, what we do is we rotate in the band of who's in charge of doing equipment, transportation, setup, and all that stuff. So for example, the first concert of the year, the flutes are assigned to do that. So say we're going, off campus somewhere else, they're the ones who help with the truck and with the moving equipment and so forth. And then the next concert, it's the clarinets. And then the next concert after that is the saxophones and so forth. And people seem to like that. They know what to do. They only really get utilized a couple times a year, and it's just fair to do that. So it's not always the same people who have to worry about loading equipment and staying afterwards and everything like that. And we haven't had any complaints. If people can't make it that particular day, then they find someone else in the band to come help as well. And pretty much percussion helps with every concert.
That's wonderful. And what about Chicago here? Mosley's, what do you guys do?
We rehearse in the social hall of the church, which is a floor below the sanctuary where we perform. And so the room is empty when we get there, and it's empty when we leave. We have, we set up a standard seating plan with the church's chairs and music stands, and we store our percussion there. And so out come the timpani and all the other large equipment. We try and get that done an hour before. It's we start rehearsals Thursdays at 7, and so that's a 5 to 6 effort. And the people who do it are primarily retired. We have one person that's a realtor in the area, and he has a lot more flexibility about his time. And so, and he's younger than the retired people, so that's helpful. And
Yeah, it is.
You're talking about a lot. It's definitely my workout for the day.
Absolutely. Right. I have one question, and I can tell I'm working with really great band directors because we are 2 minutes ahead of time, you guys. So I've got one question I'm going to throw in here. And that is just a yes or a no answer to this. Does your band own all their own percussion equipment, or is it something from maybe a school you are affiliated with or something like that? And I'll start with Mark Rogers.
We own next to nothing, and we are in the process of purchasing that stuff. Before the pandemic, we rehearsed at a local community college, and we used all of their equipment. So when the pandemic came and we were forced out, then we have moved to other places. And of course, all the places that we rehearse have their own percussion equipment, but the band doesn't own anything. So we are always sort of scrambling at the last minute to make sure we have percussion equipment that are necessary for the concert.
Right. How about you, Michael?
My band is very similar to Mark's. We don't own any percussion instruments. We rehearse at a school, and we use their percussion when we have rehearsals. And then for our concerts, we truck the percussion into the concert venue, and then when we're done, we truck it back to the school.
Okay, so you have an agreement with that school then? Mm-hmm.
Yes, they are very happy to have us come in. And the students often attend our rehearsals. And I think that's great. I think they learn a great deal.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
In terms of
yeah, thank you.
Reality.
Yeah. Absolutely. Stephanie, what about your program?
No, we don't own very much. Like I said before, I'm a teacher, so all the equipment is there and we just use that. With that being said, we did buy a timpani a few years back. I only had 3 at my middle school, and I wanted a 4th. And so our community band got a grant for some money, and I said, buy me a timpani, and they happily did.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's great. And what about Sarah? What about your program with your percussion?
It's kind of half and half. The band owns the 4 timpani. The band themselves funded 2 of the timpani, and then we got a grant for 2 of them. So we have a very nice set of timpani that the band owns. Someone donated a set of orchestra bells and a pit xylophone. And I think the band purchased a gong not too long ago. So we do own some of the equipment the band does. A lot of it is owned by Mark and I.
Okay.
How we got the band started, is
Wow.
funding
That's amazing.
stuff ourselves.
Yeah, great. Well, okay, let's move on to our second topic, unless there is someone that still would like to say one more thing about rehearsal management. Okay. Michael?
Just one thing
Yeah.
that I neglected to mention early on. Our librarian and I worked together to find YouTube links to all the pieces that we perform. And we post those links on our website so that the members of the band can hear the music as they follow along on their specific part. And that really helps us get through rehearsals a lot faster.
Wonderful. Thank you. Yeah, that's we're to be able to have all these different types of apps out there to do that really does help. A lot of people can hear great recordings. Okay, well, we're going to move now and to band membership, and I'm going to start with the Mosleys on this. Some of the topics or some of the bullet points on this topic would be like members that are starting to age out physically and for various reasons, band membership retention, attracting new members. One of the questions that came up was, how are we recruiting? Any recruiting advice? How do you get younger players to consider your community band? Another one is encouraging diversity, taking care of band members, whatever happens within your ensemble. And do you do anything with like mentors with new members, like packets and doing things with first concerts or anything like that? So this is all about our members. So Mosley's, what are your thoughts on that?
Okay. You want to talk about them in that order? Okay.
Yeah, that's fine. Kind of split the bullet points here. So one of the first bullet point I think was aging out, and we have quite a few older members. We've never really had a problem though. They often self-select and realize that I just can't keep up anymore, and with the level of the music that we're playing or whatever else it is. Or sometimes we just readjust the seating in the section, and maybe they were playing second trumpet and now they're playing third cornet, or something of that nature. We don't generally kick people out. We're a community band, and some people play at a very high level and some people don't, and but that's the nature of a community band, we believe anyway. And so we make our adjustments as we need to.
As we've said, once you're in, unless you choose to leave. We have several senior people in it. We have I'd say 40% are fairly young, in their 20s. We have a 96-year-old trumpet player, and he keeps because he practices every day. I only wish everyone else would hard against Father Time as he has. So we're pretty diverse in terms of age. The retention, when we lose people, particularly in the younger folks, it's because they move. They're fairly transient. They're at the point in their life that they're changing careers, they're going to grad school, they're doing other things. That's the reason why most people seem to leave the band. We offer leaves of absence for people, and that's particularly popular when babies are coming into your family. That helps. But our retention, I think, is based on having a good time in rehearsal. People want to have a good experience weekly by playing good music and enjoying the rehearsal, being treated with respect, seeing their friends. A lot of people do go out after the rehearsal for a beer, and a lot of people have said that one of the things about the band is that they've made some great friends. So our retention has been to make sure that people have a good experience. We have in terms of attracting new members, so our website is by far the most effective means. When we started the band in the fall of 2015, we had a core group of people who were interested in it, and we were able to perform a first concert that fall with about 35 people. But in the next concert, it was 60 people, and that's as far as the church will fit. We can't fit anybody else in the front of the sanctuary. So we've been at that size ever since. We're fortunate because there are so many great community bands in the suburbs of Chicago, but there wasn't very much in the city. And so there were a lot of people that were attracted to performing in the group. So now we do get people on the waiting list by word of mouth, but I'd say the website is the most important. So it was very important to us that, you know, we manage our Google placement on the you know, if you do a search, we want to make sure that
We're at the top.
Mhm. Yeah, wonderful. Good. Anything else before we move to Stephanie on this that you'd like to share?
Let's talk about diversity.
Yeah, I'll just share a little bit about this. I'm looking forward to hearing other people's comments about encouraging diversity. We've a number of years back, you know, had one concert where we featured all female and African American, you know, composers of diversity. And after that concert, we since had decided to feature a composer or two of diversity for every single concert, because we just felt like that we should continue to do that and not do it maybe once a year or twice a year, something like that. So that's just one small way in terms of that. And also we're starting to try to expose the band to guest conductors, female guest conductors, and others, you know, performers, I think, as in our future as well, so that they get more of that. In terms of attracting them as members, well, that's a tough one, and I'd like to share here other
we are
suggestions.
pretty diverse in terms of gender, of course. That's about 50-50. And we have a fair number of people who are Hispanic or Asian, but you know, we live in a city that has a big Black population, and we've only had 3 or 4 Black people in the band, and they, for all whatever reasons, have moved away and are out. And so it's an issue the board has talked about. We have a strategic plan and 6 goals, and the 6th one is, you know, we're diverse, but we want to be more diverse. And how do we do that? Well, we want to play in neighborhoods that, you know, are diverse, but
Right.
you got to have players, you know,
Right.
people to play. And
Sure.
we thought about recruiting in some way by contacting the music schools, and we did not like the letter. The way the letter was written, it wasn't right. And so it's a very sensitive subject. And you know, we are looking, we'd be certainly welcoming. We think of ourselves as a welcoming organization. We're certainly diverse in terms of sexual orientation, but we're not diverse enough in terms of color.
Good. Well, let's go to Stephanie and speak on some of these things. Not necessarily diversity, if you choose to, fine, but in some of this about band membership.
You know, yeah, diversity, it is a very sort of touchy subject. I can imagine, or I know for sure. We have a good friend, or one of my former teachers, directs the Lesbian Gay Freedom Band in San Francisco. And he was like, we should get together and do a joint concert. And I said, that would be great. Now, we live in a conservative part of California. Roseville is a conservative part of California. And so this particular freedom band likes to get out into sort of areas maybe that, you know, there's not as many out people, I guess.
Mhm.
And that did cause a little bit of ruffle with some of our members and everything, but it was really good for us, I thought. And just trying to show that, you know, we are open to any race, any gender, any sexual orientation, and to you know, plan our concerts and just keep it open like that. I think that's a good way. I don't know if that really helped recruit anyone new, but just having, you know, the flyers out in our community, people know where we stand, or know at least where I stand as a director and everything. As far as recruitment goes, I think it's really important to be in touch with your local music educators and your local band directors, and they're good resources, they're good players. And I have a handful of band directors in my band. They have access to kids, and sometimes it's good to bring them in as well. The parents of the parents of band students are oftentimes musicians themselves. And by the time their kids get to high school, they're looking to maybe get their instrument out, even though it's been 20 years since they played. So I think that's a way of sort of keeping it fresh. I have a lot of band parents in the band too recently. So
That's good. Stephanie, talk about the aging out in your band. Do you deal with any of that? How you?
we do. I don't think that's anything I necessarily have had to address, but there definitely we've had people pass away. We've had people whose memory may not be so well, so they were playing, you know, like lead parts, and maybe they kind of had to step down from that, but they kind of took care of that, or section leaders sort of helped them with that. But that's definitely hard to see. So
Yeah. Okay. Wonderful. Okay. Mark Rogers, let's talk for a moment about what goes on in your band like these.
Well,
days.
in terms of aging out, we just this past weekend had to say goodbye to two members of the clarinet section, a bass clarinet and his wife, who we sat as concert mistress for that particular concert. He has turned 80 since then and has been having some health issues. So they let us know several weeks ago that they were, when he hit 80, that was going to be his last concert. Interestingly enough, the pandemic caused a situation in our trumpet section. We had difficulty retaining good young trumpet players in our section because some of the older and less skillful members of the trumpet section were hogging the first parts. And when they dropped out because of justifiable, understandable fears about their health, well, of course, we had to rebuild the trumpet section. And then because it is a large band and we're rehearsing in a small room, when some of those people wanted to come back, it was like, I'm very sorry, we don't have room. We can't bring you back. In terms of band member retention, one of the things that we do is we try to rotate players within the section as much as is possible and is appropriate, so that people don't get stuck on fourth horn forever. In terms of attracting new members, we find that the success of our concerts always results in a situation where there's always a flurry of activity of people who say, hey, I want to be a part of your band. But again, when you're rehearsing in a small middle school band room and you're already pushing 100 players, there's simply not room until someone decides that they need to step down. In terms of taking or encouraging diversity, we live in a majority Hispanic community here in San Antonio. The African American population here is vanishingly small, something under 5%. But it happens that I have 3 Black people in our band, so that's roughly appropriate to what we have. I think it's been one of those things that's very difficult, and I go back and think of other things that I've done in my life. Many years ago, I was the music director for a production of Little Shop of Horrors, and there's a group of 3 backup singers who traditionally are Black. And this production was in Mobile, Alabama, and we had no Black people audition for any part in the show. So we had to cast them with Caucasian girls with big hair. And, you know, it's been one of those things. you can put out the welcome mat and some people just simply won't come. We do have every other kind of diversity, although here in San Antonio, we also have a Pride of San Antonio show band. So that tends to attract a lot of the people in the gay and lesbian community, but we've got plenty of people who are of that persuasion in our group as well.
Okay, well, thank you, Mark. That helps a lot. Michael, what about you in Oregon?
Well, I've been very fortunate that I've never had to invite anybody to leave. The older people in the band in the past have always self-selected. They say, well, my health is not that good, or I don't have time to practice anymore, or my chops are not what they used to be, and they self-select to leave. And as I mentioned before, we have a list of subs that we call on to fill those empty spots. And we always throw a party for whoever has to leave. We hate to lose anybody, regardless of the reason. In terms of diversity, I would say that probably 40% of the players in the band are women. You may or may not know that when Oregon was established as a territory, and then later as a state, it was a Black exclusion territory and a Black exclusion state. So we do not have very many Black people in the state of Oregon, but I have 3 Black members of the band, a number of Asians. And we recently featured a guest conductor who is the only Black high school band director in the state. So we are representative of the demographics in the state. I wish I could wave a magic wand and change that. But we encourage minority students from the schools where we play to come and listen to our rehearsals. And we always thank our audience for coming to our performances.
Okay. All really good advice. And I'm sure there's people putting things in the chat also for everyone else to read. And that's always important as well. One of the things I'll just share, I was working with a community orchestra, actually, it wasn't a band. And one of the things that they did to recruit more members was once they got someone interested that might have gotten on their website or they heard about somebody, they put a mentor with that person from the band. And they gave them welcome packets. The first concert was a big deal for that first time member. They just really treated them sort of like the welcome wagon, you know, the old days of bringing them in, if that is an issue, or if you're looking for certain instruments. So I just thought that was not something I'd ever heard done before in a community band, but this orchestra was finding quite a few people that way and treating them very, very well. And I thought that was nice. Well, good. Let's go on to our third topic. And this one I think is going to be a really good one. It's the audience development topic. There was a question that came from registration, and it was, what type of competitions do you face in attracting an audience? Not competitions to go to, of course, but you know, what kind of things do you in your community, do you face anything that it maybe is the same day or has something to do with the same type of things that you do? Some other ones would be audience development and engaging strategies. How do you engage them? The publicity that you do to find audience. Programming, of course, is huge. Do you use any kind of visual aids? One of the examples was like dancers and things like that. Technology, do you use a slideshow? Do you use videos? Do you use phones or take polls while it's going on, your concert? And then, of course, all the marketing things too that we all try to do with our social side with apps and the media. So I'd like to start with Mark Rogers on this one, please, and we'll go roundtable.
Well, one of the things that I've been very interested in, my wife and I have done some overseas tourism lately, and actually before the pandemic. The first time we went to London, we did some unusual things. We did a lot of the normal things, Stonehenge and so forth, but I wanted to go to the Royal Military School of Music at Kneller Hall. And I happened to be there at a wonderful time because they were coming to the end of a term, and we were able to observe a couple of rehearsals, but most importantly, we got to come back for a concert on the Thursday of that week. And one of the things that I thought was very important, both about programming and about engaging the audience, of course, in the British military band situation now, because of course the British military isn't the size that it was back during World War I and World War II, their primary goal is to bring audience members in. So the three things that I took away from the rehearsals and what we witnessed is, number one, you have to program music that you, the conductor, can conduct and your band can play. Because if the band is not up to the music you're playing, you're going to have trouble. Number two, you have to be able, you have to program music that the audience wants, because wants to hear. Because if, you know, one of the issues that I see with a lot of first-time community band directors, they program like the college band that they used to be conducting before then, you know, slightly before then, not realizing that the people who came to college band concerts, when they come at all, are people who are there because they're fulfilling a requirement to attend a certain amount of concerts because they're taking a music appreciation course. And, you know, and if parents of my band members are not going to come because they're deceased, well, we have to find other reasons to bring members into our audience. But the third thing, and this was, I thought, very, very important, is you as the conductor, and we saw this when we went to the concert at Neller Hall, you must be able to go to the microphone and engage your audience. And that means that there should never be any dead time in the concert. No turning around and looking at the percussion section to see if they're ready to go, and just having all of this deadly silence. This last week's concert, we did it at one of the historic high schools here in San Antonio, which had parking issues. So the people out in the hall said, we need to hold the downbeat. And we didn't actually start the concert until 8 or 10 minutes after the announced time. And so it was time for me to go to the microphone and become Johnny Carson band director and entertain the audience, and rather than have them sit there waiting for seeing what's going to go on. And we were doing an all John Williams concert. So I told them stories about when I first became aware that there was this composer named John Williams. And in particular, it may have been when I went to see the movie Jaws, and I was just, you know, frightened and holding my wife's hand, and I just about jerked it off, you know, when the shark jumped out of the audience, and it brought a laugh from the crowd. And that's what we have to do. We have to engage the audience. For some of this stuff, if you don't mind, my wife is in the chat room, and she does a ton of the stuff, or she's in the audience, and she does a ton of the publicity and programming. And I would like to let her talk for just a few minutes about the many things that she does.
Welcome.
Thank you. Our target audience is everybody. You talk about diversity, you know, we want everybody to come and hear our concerts. So we use social media, we use posters, we use business cards with information about the concert. It's a business card size, but it has Heart of Texas, and it says when the next concert is, and the members can carry those in their purse or wallet and hand them out to their dentist or whoever they happen to see for the month before the concert. And we have to refresh those every rehearsal, because people take them and tell their friends and their family. It, you know, word of mouth is obviously the best PR that you can do. But my approach is to get on every social media platform I can and post different graphics to engage people, to get their attention. I try not to post the same you know, information I try to post the same information in a different way, or using a different picture, so people will notice that and say, hey, what is this? Oh, that's the band again, you know, with a different picture. But I have a team of people who help me. One lady makes the cards. One person makes the graphics and the posters, and Mark prints all of those. He's the librarian too, by the way. So we're quite busy with the band, but we're retired, so that makes it easy. But I just think it's important to encourage your band members to invite their friends, their family, anybody they can, and to share the social media. We've gotten a lot of response now from the band because they're sharing and they're realizing that, hey, their friends are coming to concerts. And we had at least over 600 at our last concert a week ago. And, you know, it was wonderful to play for that many people, but it takes the whole team, the whole band to do your PR.
Absolutely. That's great. Good, good. Michael, let's hear what you do with your audience development.
Well, we use social media. We're very active on Facebook. I don't think we use Twitter, but we're very active on Facebook, and occasionally we will highlight one of the members of the band who has a solo in the upcoming concert. We mention every concert has a theme. So if somebody sees the announcement on Facebook, then they'll say, "Oh, that theme sounds interesting to me." We recently did a theme called Musical Masterpieces, which is all, I guess, what you would consider standard core literature. And we had a very nice audience for that. The one that's coming up is called That's Entertainment, and it's all music from Broadway. And I know that's going to be a real audience grabber because, well, I mean, Broadway music, everybody loves it. We also give posters to everybody in the band to post in their local supermarket, to put in the window of the local real estate agency. You know, any kind of advertisement we can get that is visible on the street. And we always have ads in our programs from businesses that are close to wherever it is that we're playing. And for example, a local Ford dealer is somebody that's put an ad in our programs, and they give a miniature poster to everybody that comes into their showroom. So we have a go buy a car from these guys. So that's what we do, and that's just one example. We do that in every venue that we play. There's always somebody who lives nearby and is willing to hand out those miniature posters to whoever it is that will take them.
That's wonderful. One of the things that hasn't been discussed is using technology, or do you do anything with visuals, anything of that nature, Michael?
Well, we haven't used visuals lately. We did a concert not long ago that had to do with the elements, and everything in the program had to do with earth, fire, water. What am I missing?
Wind.
And everything in the concert had something to do with one of the elements. And for each element, we flashed public domain videos on the screen behind us. We haven't done anything like that lately, but I have a couple of people in the band who have come up with ideas for us to expand that kind of thing. So that's something that we're considering for next year, beginning with our fall series.
Wonderful. Good, good, good. Anything else, Michael, on this audience development before we move to the Mosleys?
I think that pretty much says.
Okay. Thank you. Great. Wonderful. What do you think, Sarah?
We use Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and I also use LinkedIn because I have many colleagues that I'm, paired with, and other people are that enjoy our concerts. So I also use LinkedIn. And we're fortunate to have a couple of marketing professionals in the band, and they can do some great little clips and pictures and things for us at work very well, especially on Twitter and Instagram, because that's a very much smaller space, so to speak, than say Facebook. And we try to spend time with Facebook ahead of the concert, maybe highlighting each piece or several of the pieces of the music that we're playing, giving a little bit of a clip about what it's about, or maybe the composer, or highlighting a a soloist who might be joining us for a particular concert as well. We do posters. We go out to all the churches that are around the church that we play in. There's many around in the same area. We also have done not business card size, but we do 3x5 side at the beginning, and list all our concert dates. For the season. Hopefully people get a little magnet and put it up on their refrigerator or something. But that's one idea we use. We have found, though, just as an FYI, the younger group, they don't want paper. So, we're sending everything to them. Even email is tough for them. They're really used to texting and things like that. But they do realize that that's how we communicate with the band is email. So we do send most of the stuff to everybody in the band, but as attachments and things like that, because they don't necessarily want the paper.
But they're more likely to attach the PDF that we send them to their friends and parents, colleagues, than to post it.
We also, there's a music company here, Performers Music, that has a very large mailing list, 1,400 people. So we pay a little bit of money to, especially if it's a big concert, to advertise through them as well. So
and we use MailChimp.
And MailChimp is what we use for, we have a pretty good size
email
list. Yeah.
We're very fortunate that one of the great benefits that's come out of COVID has been the live streaming. And so we live stream all our concerts, and it's fortunate because the church set up for that. So they continue to live stream the worship services, and the people who run this TriMaster or whatever the technology is on the balcony, and they have movable cameras, and they really enjoy it. And they've done a really good job. In the past, we'd have someone videotape the concert, and it would take weeks before we'd get an edited copy. It's being the edit is being made up on the spot. It's what was broadcast, and so we get it right away, and everybody can see it and enjoy it, and it's available to people all over the world. One man's daughter lives in Beijing. Somebody else's mother lives in Alaska. We're really very fortunate to be able to, our families, like my family is all out west, and so they can tune in and see the concert. We are about a third of our audience now is remote, virtual.
That's wonderful. I know personally, I have watched one of your concerts, a couple of your concerts actually. So I do know that it is nice to be able to do it. And that's fortunate that you are in that church situation, because you have that already locked in. And I'm assuming you don't charge for your concerts?
We don't.
Okay.
We ask for donations, and I think we get about as much money that way.
Right.
Don't bother with tickets, and
Sure.
It's totally open.
Sure. Wonderful. Okay. Good. Anything else on that before we move to Stephanie? Yeah. Yep. Okay. All right. Stephanie, please share with us what you do with your audience development.
Sure. I would say the majority of our concerts are concerts that I call, or maybe it's called having a built-in audience. So we'll do concerts with schools, we'll do concerts with another performing arts group or something. We used to do a chocolate festival in front of Whole Foods grocery store, which is in this really nice shopping center. And that was really great because it sounds like, oh yeah, you're just playing in front of a grocery store, but it's in a nice shopping area, like an upscale shopping area in town. And that was really nice because you just have people walking in, people don't mind coming if they know there's going to be free chocolate, or we played at the county fair once. So for us doing those kind of concerts, not only do we hopefully get new audience members, but we get exposure to people who wouldn't necessarily normally come to concerts. A big project that sort of our band is surrounded by is we do a silent movie concert every year. And I pretty much score a silent movie. A lot of times they're in public domain. Sometimes we have to rent, or I guess, is it rent? Sort of buy the rights to screen these films. And I put concert band music to it. And it's a combination of concert band music and piano music. And I think just having something else visually interesting going on, or us being part of the storytelling of the movie, has been really fun for our musicians and for the audience too. So that's something we use. Another thing that we did, we do, I think for our 4th of July concert, we usually do this. We play at a retirement community, a nice retirement community where they have a nice ballroom, and we don't have to advertise for them. They do all the advertisement at the retirement community, and they sell the tickets and everything, and we just charge a flat fee to them to do it. But we made it fun. We had a movie themed 4th of July concert, and we did a trivia game throughout the concert. We just handed out, I think we put a little trivia card, or we put like a game card in our program and handed out little golf pencils. And people, could submit their answers on the trivia card, and we would do movie trivia or movie music trivia. And then I got together a nice little gift basket, and people who got correct answers, who wanted to submit their game cards, put their email on it. So suddenly we had all these emails from audience members. And then we chose one name, and they got to come up and win the gift basket and stuff. So that was one way that was really fun. And we've done that consistently. I guess we stopped doing it a couple of years ago. COVID kind of changed everything, but that's an idea I kind of forgot about that we need to bring back, because it's definitely fun to have it, like, during intermissions, to have like a raffle or a silent auction or something like that.
Right. We've done 50-50 raffles, I know, in the past, and it's fun because everybody wins, really. Anything more on this topic from any of the 5 speakers today about audience development? I know one thing that, go ahead, Mark.
Just to run down a quick list of the sort of things that we have done. We have merged with a sister performing arts group here in town. Last year, we did 2 Arturo Marquez pieces and turned it into a ballet. We're going to be doing the 4 dance episodes from Rodeo with ballet dancers again in the fall. We have handbells who perform with us on July 4th and at Christmas time. And we have vocalists, either narrators or a full choir at Christmas time and July 4th, whenever we possibly can, just because I know that while the average audience that goes to symphony concerts is prepared to listen to Mahler symphony, if that's what's on the bill, the average run-of-the-mill audience really needs something to look at that's different, and something to listen to that's different. This last Christmas, we did selections from the Polar Express, and we also did selections from How the Grinch Stole Christmas. And one of the handbell members dressed up in a Grinch costume and ran through the crowd, and things like that. Those are the sort of things which I think are extremely memorable for members of the audience.
I like the idea. Yeah, I see that. Thank you. I like the idea of the ballet, particularly. I think that's really interesting. And the trivia game idea, Stephanie, what a great idea. Yeah, just gets the audience somewhat involved with that. Last year in Santa Fe, Christy Muncie was the conductor of the convention band, and she shared a lot of types of these things with that. And we did a ACB Connects with her. So if anyone is interested to find out how to use your virtual things, your phones, this kind of stuff, like Stephanie was discussing, go and look in our ACB Connects library and watch that. It's worth watching, because she had a whole PowerPoint on that idea, if you want to do some things like that. Fantastic. Stephanie, do you have one more thing? It looked like you had your hand up. No, okay, terrific. All right, so we're going to move on this time, and we will start with Stephanie on this. And this is on programming, which everyone loves to do. It's always fun to do. It's like going to candy stores when you get to program music. And the bullet points for this are, how does it relate to all of the above, the things we've discussed this whole since 4 o'clock Eastern time? How do you do themes? Are there certain themes that, you know, where do you get your theme ideas? Music of other countries, do you do some things like that? What about commissioning works? Do you do this? Also lending libraries, where do you find the lending libraries for some of the things that perhaps you don't have the budget to have? How do you balance educating adults of various skill levels, yet keeping it fun and enjoyable within your environment? That was a question that came up from the people that are here today. So I'd like to start with Stephanie. So Stephanie, go ahead.
Sure. I think Mark had said this before, but know your audience for programming. You're not necessarily going to do the same music that you would do for 4th of July that you would do for a joint concert with an elementary school or something. For getting ideas, I do a lot. I look a lot on social media for what other band directors are doing. And there's a huge band directors group called Band Directors on Facebook that I go to for a lot of ideas, and a lot of people share their programs and everything. So I don't do themed concerts all the time, but they definitely have some good ideas for that. As far as our library, the Sacramento Valley Symphonic Band Association has a huge library that has a ton of music there, and if you're a member of that, you have the rights to borrow stuff. I've also borrowed music from the Chatfield Brass Band Library. They've been a great resource, especially for things that are out of print. And to just, keep a healthy budget in your budget for buying new music all the time. And I pretty much, I'm on JW Pepper or Sheet Music Plus listening to music all the time. And I'm a teacher, and so I listen for music for my kids, but especially but in the summer I really do a lot of listening for the community band. I haven't been yet to the Midwest Band Clinic, but a lot of times they will publish the programs of new pieces that they're that are coming out and that the top bands are playing, and I go and I write down titles or composers that I find interesting. Our community band actually recently did a clinic on music. I called it Band Gems of Underrepresented Composers. And because I know that it's something that's needed right now, and I feel very passionate about it. I need to do better myself of picking music that's not just written by straight white men. So I knew that was something I wanted to improve on for myself. And I did a lot of research on that. And we had a music educators in service that my community band went to and played for. And with doing that, I discovered all these great, pieces to do and presented it. And it was a good community builder. I got to know a lot of new composers and everything like that. But it's just something that you have to constantly be on the hunt for. So, I mean, I do have things that I love to do. I love doing the Holst. I love doing Victory at Sea. I love doing all those things, but it's always good to be on the eye for new things. As far as commissioning, there's a lot of commissions going on right now that you don't have to start on your own. You could join someone else's commission, and we have done that on a couple different things before.
Sorry about that. I think that's a great way to do it. It's a less expensive way to get involved with a commission on a consortium, for sure. And a lot of composers are looking for that. Let's go over to Mark and Mark Rogers, and let's hear him talk a little bit about programming.
One of the things that really influenced me in the way I program is many years ago, I read two books that really mattered a lot to me. One of them was the biography of Arthur Fiedler, which had been written by Harry Ellis Dixon. And he talked about the way in which the Boston Pops programmed. And of course, they have to program to attract an audience because they have to sell tickets, because they are a profit-making organization. And the thing that really impressed me was the first chapter in the book was not about Arthur Fiedler. It was about the Sousa Band and how the Sousa Band programmed and what they did to bring in an audience, and variety and surprises, unannounced encores. And of course, Sousa was performing in the era before the Broadway musical, before sound movies, or they came in at the very end of the Sousa thing. So the soloists who sang with the Sousa Band were performing vocal selections from operettas and operas and things like that. But he had soloists all the time to bring people in. And so that is something that I think if you want to get an idea of, some good ideas. Unfortunately, I don't believe the Evening at Pops is being broadcast anymore. But when I was growing up, it was one of those things that you could watch Evening at Symphony on your local PBS station, and then during the summer months, Evening at Pops, and you could watch for an hour to see how Arthur Fiedler programmed. And then some of us had the experience of playing with Keith Bryan in the new Sousa Band. I see Gil down there. And doing Sousa themed concerts with encores and those and soloists. Boy, those are terrifically important. Christmas and July 4th are easy, but it's the other concerts that we do in other parts of the year that you just got to do something to have some sort of a hook to bring the customers in. And I think that's very important. Now, bearing that in mind, we do one concert a year, which is, I would say, more for the band than for our audience. One of the things that I do, I'm still a practicing professional musician. Last night, I was in Corpus Christi playing contrabassoon in a performance with the Corpus Christi Symphony of Carmina Burana. So once a year, I give the members of my band the opportunity to emulate the programming of a regional orchestra. So I have found a number of complete symphonic works in transcription. This coming fall, we're going to do Dvorak's 8th Symphony, which I found in a transcription over in Europe. And we're going to surround that with other music of Bohemian composers. I did a transcription of the Moldau years ago, and then we're going to have some Fuchik pieces on there as well. All three of those guys are all buried in the same cemetery in Prague, and that's how you put a program of Bohemian music together. Oh, last thing, commissioning. 2 concerts ago, we premiered a piece of music by a local Texas composer, Willie Owens, who lives up in the Fort Worth area. When my parents passed away, they left me with some money, and I have decided as a bassoon player that I want to use that money to commission people to write pieces of music for solo bassoon and band. So I asked Willie if he would write a piece, and I expected a 4 or 5 movement piece. I ended up with a 4 movement, 12-minute suite of programmatic pieces descriptive of the national park here in Texas, Big Bend. So I really got my money's worth on something like that. And because Willie is an African-American composer, it helps us to check off some other boxes. And I'm pretty sure that as soon as he puts together a piano accompaniment to that, it'll end up on contest lists all over the country.
Mark, is that published yet, the band?
Willie has, what he told us is that he intended to self-publish that. So you can get it from his website, but he was so pleased with the way it turned out. He has been invited to conduct one of the Texas all-state bands in February of 2024. And he has already reached out to the soloist saying to Angela, I want to perform this piece with the all-state band.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you for letting us know about that and for all of your great ideas. Michael, let's move on to you for a moment about programming.
Well, it's hard to piggyback on what Mark has already said, because as far as I'm concerned, he's hit all the high spots. That book about Arthur Fiedler and John Philip Sousa and the way they program is just, you just can't beat it. The cardinal rule is know your audience, and community bands generally, in my personal opinion, should not be in the business of trying to educate the audience. That's not really what we should be doing. We should be entertaining the audience. That doesn't mean that everything has to be a pops concert, but music played very, very well is very entertaining. And the idea, as I mentioned before, of a theme concert is a great way to draw an audience in. If you do a Broadway theme or a movie theme, or Stephanie's silent movie theme, I just flat love that idea. I think that's absolutely terrific. And I may be in touch with you, Stephanie, to see if I can borrow some of them. Thinking about how to get music. In terms of commissioning, my band has commissioned 3 pieces, one by James Barnes, one by James Curnow, and one by Ralph Ford. And the Northwest Bandmasters Association just commissioned Robert Sheldon to do a new piece with a Northwest theme. A little bit of shameless promotion here. It's called Pacific Crest, and it has to do with the Pacific Crest Trail. It's a really terrific piece, joyous, uplifting. It'll be published by Alpha next year. There's no greater feeling for me as a conductor to bring a new musical child into the world. So commissioning is a wonderful way to extend what we do, not just presenting music to our audiences, but also creating that music. And the idea of creating a consortium so that the composer's fee doesn't hit one person in the pocketbook is a great idea. If you have a large enough consortium, the buy-in to create a new musical masterpiece is really not difficult at all. And I encourage anybody who's here on the ACB Connects today to consider that.
Okay, wonderful. It was brought. Oh,
may I say one more thing about what Michael just said about know your audience? If the second piece of communication between me and a composer that I had asked to write a piece of music for bassoon and band was, if the composer said, could you please send me a list of all of the 20th century techniques and multiphonics that are playable on the bassoon, that would have been the end of that discussion. Because I don't think bassoon players want to do that, and I don't think audiences want to hear it.
Well, thank you. Okay. One of the things that was brought up about programming, and I'll just say it, and it was in the chat, Tom Rotundi put it in, is about a really great book. If it kind of hits on 2 things. It hits on new music, and it also hits on diversity. The book is The Horizon Leans Forward, and it's in your chat. So I would encourage you to look at that. And Michael, I know that you have a wonderful book out that has to do with Canadian music and Canadian composers, if you want to mention that one too.
Well, some time ago, I was invited to adjudicate a band festival in Canada, and the bands had been encouraged to play a Canadian piece. And up to that point, I thought I was pretty smart about band repertoire. And I was actually very embarrassed to discover that I didn't know any of those Canadian pieces. And they were so well written. So I said, well, I need to shore up this section of my knowledge. So I took a sabbatical and dug up as much Canadian music as I could, talked to a lot of Canadian composers and Canadian publishers, and thinking that I would have enough material maybe to do a lecture someplace. Lo and behold, I had enough to write a book. And it happens that was in 2006. It happens that I'm on sabbatical now, and next week I'm going back to Canada to see if I can get enough information for a second edition. The title of the book is very catchy: Canadian Band Music.
It's easy to remember. Oh, that's wonderful, Michael. I'm glad to hear you're doing that as a second thing. That's fantastic. I would like to move on now to the Mosleys and have you discuss a little bit about how you do your programming, please.
I think we do many of the things that have been talked about. We tend to have a theme, which can be tightly or loosely used. We're very much influenced by the programming strategies of Sousa and Arthur Fiedler specifically, I think, for community bands. I'll say that my high school band director was very good at programming and programming a range of abilities, pieces that were different. So he was really good at finding great pieces that were high quality but not hard. And a great example of that is Salvation is Created, or Blessed Are They, the Barbara Gilman arrangement. And those pieces move people. So we're not I hesitate to use the word entertain our audience, but I do want to move everybody in the audience. Sarah was talking about in the fall, we played a beautiful piece by Florence Price, Adoration, and it was a lovely piece. It wasn't hard, and then we followed that with the finale was Of Our New Day Begun by Omar Thomas, and it was very powerful. We've played.
We had a number of audience members that were just grateful that we had exposed them to this composer. They were going onto YouTube to find out more about him and other pieces by Omar and Florence Price as well, because they were so moved by a particular piece.
So we are interested in giving the audience and the band members something to to appreciate. If the band doesn't like it, it's not going to go very well. Even if it's light summer music, it's still got to be good. This summer, we're going to play film music, and we can play that same program with some variations, at 5 different locations. There's just so much great music related to the great film composers. The idea of going to Broadway or doing all pops but great things would be reasonable things for us to do in the summer. We ask the band at the end of each year to rate each piece that we've played, on 1 to 5, right? And so we get a pretty good sense of what they like. And they like the things that we like. They want to play Chorale and Shaker Dance. They want to play Chorale and Hallelujah. They often ask us to look at pieces that we don't know because it's been a while since we were in college, and those, as Mark said, they often want to play just what they played in college. But two of those pieces fit really nicely on a concert. So as long as it's not a tremendously way out piece, it can move people, and so that's what we're really looking for, is a variety in the concert. I liked what Mark said about 3 things. Number 1, making sure that you and your band can play it, that you can conduct it and play it. And number 2, it does the audience like, and I'll say it does the band appreciate it, because our primary mission is to provide an opportunity for the band members to get their weekly fix. And the secondary is to move our audience and expose them to the great wind music that's out there.
That's fantastic. I know one of the things that I just did with my ensemble in February was it's called Game On, and it was all video game music, which I had absolutely no knowledge of. And so, but I had been encouraged to look into it, which I did, and it ended up being beautiful. Some of it was so beautiful music. I encourage you to look into it. If anyone is interested, I can give you all of what I did with my program. And it was all playable by my ensemble. We had a string orchestra that did some things with us, and we also did bring in a big choir up for the finale. And there's just so many, Sogno de Volare, which is just a gorgeous, gorgeous work. So I would encourage you to not be afraid to reach out into some things that you personally is out of your comfort box, you know, to listen to your band, to hear it. I never promise them that I'll do any of it, but I'll tell them that I listen to it and I'll think about it, is what I usually say. There's a couple questions that were brought up. One of them is, do you deal with how do you deal with band members who frequently miss rehearsals or performances because of personal gigs or family illnesses? Our community band is a volunteer organization in a major city. No one gets paid, not even the directors. Anybody want to tackle that question? How do you deal with band members who frequently miss rehearsals or performances because of professional gigs or family illnesses?
You know, I just try to be human about it and know that that happens, you know, and I don't think there should be necessarily any punishment or consequence for that. I mean, if someone is consistently like dropping out at the last minute, but you know, we just have to know that we're dealing with people. This isn't their main job. They're volunteers. They're here to have a good time and everything. And a lot of times there's nothing you could do about it. I mean, you could get upset about it and angry and you know, talk to them. But I think at the end of the day, we're dealing with other people that have lives. And unfortunately, I don't know, maybe somebody has a better answer than that, but you just have to remember that they're people and they have feelings and lives and all that. So.
Right. Sarah, did you have something?
No, we talk about that often too, but we're the same way. Stephanie is suggesting too, is that, I mean, people have other full-time jobs and sometimes they have to travel or sometimes a kid gets sick or, you know, whatever it is. And it just, you know, it's just life, you know, just
right. Right. What, Michael, do you deal with anything of that to share?
Yes, you know, I think that kind of thing comes up for almost all of us. Life happens, and for whatever reason, somebody can't make a rehearsal or can't make a concert. We have kind of a rule in the Oregon Symphonic Band that of the 4 rehearsals, if you miss 2, you shouldn't be on the gig. And so whoever it is that is in that situation needs to contact the section leader, and the section leader will find a sub who's more than happy to play all 4 rehearsals and to be there for the concert. And the people in community bands really need that outlet. And so I think we have, as Stephanie said, I think we need to be understanding that sometimes life gets in the way and we need to have some sort of mechanism to cope with it.
Right, right. Absolutely. Mark, anything you want to share?
One of the reasons that we carry as large a band as we do is so that I can afford to have one of the 8 members of my horn section miss a concert because they have a professional gig. And when I have 7 left, then we're still okay. But something that I saw in one of the chat links that I think might be worth addressing is, how do you feel, or how would you feel about having 1 or 2 paid members of your band? And every time that we do a concert that has a important harp part, well, we understand that we're going to have to pay a harp player to come in and play with us. Now, maybe your budget would not afford something like that, but I would like for you to even consider going a little further than that. Think of all the pieces that you couldn't play if the best oboe player in your band was absolutely dreadful. And in a situation like that, I think it's worth having just a few paid positions within your band, because having a ringer in the oboe section allows you to play so many pieces that have the featured oboe solo and not have those moments be so cringe-worthy when they come up. And there may be a few other places as well. I'm willing to pay a string bass player to be with my band because of what sort of sounds we can get from an artist level string bass player who can drop that pizzicato exactly right on the beat and give us those things to move ahead. I think it might be worthwhile to have a paid solo trumpet player if you haven't got mature trumpet players, or a paid percussion section leader.
Right. I think jobs come out of that sometimes within that. We have just a couple minutes here, and I want to ask this question because I think it was talked about a bit in the chat, but it'd be interesting to see what you have to say. One, do you have a board of directors? And do you have paid positions within your ensemble? And let's just start with Michael on this one.
We do have a board of directors, president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, and there are other appointed people or volunteers who take care of such things as membership, librarian, those sorts of things. Everybody in my band is a volunteer except yours truly. The band has forced on me to take a stipend, which I give back to him because I'm not in it for the money. I mean, anybody who's in music for the money, you're in the wrong gig. So the board meets regularly, about every 6 weeks, and we meet before and after each concert series to discuss what happened and how we can make it better. And it's a highly functioning group within the ensemble. Now, people come in and go out, and we have volunteers to come in and take their place. Everybody in the band is interested in doing whatever they can to play music at the highest level, and also to make sure that we function at the highest level possible. So we're very, very fortunate.
Right. I'm going to add one more thing into that. As the conductor of the bands, the 5 of you, of your own bands, do you get to do all the selecting of the literature, or is that part of reporting back to a board or anything of that nature? And I'm just going to let Michael finish with that, and then we'll do those 3 questions with everyone.
Well, in my case, I send to the board a proposed program for every concert that we do. And I make it very clear if anyone has a suggestion for a replacement for any piece that I've chosen, please let me know. And I'm always happy to get those suggestions. And I tell the band at least once for every concert series, if there's a piece of music that you would like me to consider programming, please email me and let me know. Sometimes there's a piece of music that I'm not familiar with. I like to keep up with band literature, but I don't know it all. I don't have that kind of hubris. So I'm always happy to take suggestions from the board or from the band members themselves.
Right. Thank you, Michael, so much. Sarah and Mark, what can you answer those 3 board? You heard what I was saying, right? The board. Go ahead. I'll just let you.
No, repeat the 3.
Again. Oh, the question was, do you have a board of directors? The other one is what Michael just answered was about music. Do you choose it all, or do you choose to take it to that? And what was my other one, Michael? Do you have paid positions within your ensemble? Sorry.
So yes, we have a board. We have a board of 7 band members plus the 2 of us. And we have a set of bylaws, and we tend to meet quarterly, but sometimes more often. They are really primarily responsible for financial oversight and advising us about any issue, and strategic planning. We don't have any paid positions. We're not paid. They're discussing whether we should be paid, but we have the library. It would be more important for them to buy the library over time. And maybe that's the amount of money that they'll pay the next director. I don't know. We don't know. That there's been no real decisions about any of that. But we're not paid. No one is paid. We have had professional people who played because it was fun. We started with a great trumpet player, and you have to have a great trumpet player, and you have to have a great oboe player. the trumpet player was always having gigs and we was always missing rehearsals, and so it just didn't work out. But you know, we love him, and he was our soloist in our last concert, and we paid him for being the soloist. The third one was we picked the music together. We plan the music, and people comment on, you know, whether they like the music after the fact. And we get recommendations, and we are excited about those recommendations. Some of them are really good. Often those are in the back of our mind too. You know, we have our bucket list, and you know, before we quit this gig, we want to play certain pieces. You know, and so some of those are on their list too.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. Let's move to Stephanie for those 3 questions.
Sure. Yes, we have a board of directors, and I get 100% say of any music that we choose. I'm willing to take suggestions. It doesn't mean I'm gonna necessarily do them, but I definitely have 100% control over that. And if that were to ever change, I probably would resign, because I don't like being told what I'm, you know, going to do. The only maybe exception is if I am talking with a soloist that we want to have featured, and they say, oh, here's this piece for alto saxon band that I want to do. That would be an exception. As far as paid positions, I'm the only one who gets paid on a regular base. Of course, we'll pay for ringers, we'll pay for soloists. We paid for a grant writer once. And our community band sponsors a music camp, and we pay for all the instructors there. But as far as just a regular, you know, day-to-day running of the community band, I'm the only one that gets paid for that.
Okay. Well, wonderful. Thanks. Thanks so much for that. Mark Rogers, what about you?
Yes, we have a board of directors. As I think Michael said, the board of directors is mainly in charge of making sure that the monies are appropriately spent and that sort of thing. In terms of picking the literature, I do have an assistant conductor, and he picks the pieces that he wants to do. And sometimes I look at those things and say, with the other things that are on that program, we can't do that. And so, you know, I do exercise a veto over that when the time comes for that. Plus, we also have one concert a year that we open up to either guest members of the band who are composers, arrangers, soloists, or would like to guest conduct the band. And again, when someone comes to me and says, I would like to guest conduct the band, can we do Rocky Point Holiday? And it's like, you can guest conduct the band, but you can't do Rocky Point Holiday because, you know, that's too hard, it's too long. And, you know, when you line up your roster of guest conductors, you know, what I basically need them to be aware of is how long is the piece of music? Oh, it's 4 minutes long. Multiply 4 times 12. You will get 12 minutes of rehearsal each time that you go to the podium. That's it, because we have to make sure that everyone else gets their fair share of podium time and the soloists get their appropriate amount of time.
Thank you. Thank you. So many great questions are coming out right now really fast onto our chat, which I'm excited about. Some of these we hope we can do on another roundtable, I think, because we're starting to be out of time. And I hate to stop this because it's really, really great. Let me just say some of the questions that came up. Do your members pay a dues? Is your ensemble auditioned, or how do you choose if you have a lot of people and only so many spots? Another one was, do you do social things within your group for any reason, and awards? Do you give awards in any way? These are all fantastic questions that should be part of what we're doing today. That is why the ACB Connects team is already starting to think about needing to do another one of these roundtables, because these are the things that it's just fun to find out about all of these fantastic things that you're saying. But I am going to have to wrap it up here, and I will just let every one of the 5 of you say something for 10 seconds and to finish up a wrap up in any way you might want to. And I'll start with Michael.
Well, I'm your president-elect, so
yes, you are. Yes, you are.
Hearing from me off and on. I'm delighted to serve in that spot. And as I mentioned before, I think community bands are absolutely great. That's why we all went to school and played in bands when we were younger. And for everybody who's still in the chat, I would encourage you to consider hosting a convention at some point. The convention in Santa Fe last year was just absolutely terrific. 3 bands co-hosted. You didn't have one band that had to shoulder all the responsibility. So I'd say take that into consideration. It's a lot of work, but it's very rewarding. So I encourage you to think about it.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you for being here today. Sarah and Mark?
Gosh, I'm not sure. One thing that I heard another band director say at one time that, you know, for them to see any of their students continue to be playing as adults in a community band, like all of us are part of, is that's a gift to them. And I'm sure a gift to many of you who have been educators at one time and perhaps still are, that so I hope you're all very proud of what you're doing and what you're accomplishing with your community bands. It's a great thing.
I agree. I thought about, we were involved in a community band before this together, and I was involved in community bands for a long time, always wanting to be able to do this. And it's a great privilege. Not only conduct great amateur musicians, but make great friends. So I mean, it just doesn't get better than that. So and it is, you know, it's something that we do together. There are too many husband and wife couples that do this. Alan, Gladys Wright, Steve Peterson, and us. I don't know if anybody knows anybody else we can add to our list, but for us, it's our labor of love.
Great, absolutely. Thank you. Mark Rogers, last couple words.
I think that one of the best things about the community band is that it is the continuing tradition of the sort of thing that used to go on over in England with brass bands, where people would go and work in the coal mines, and then they would come out of the coal mines and clean up, and then they'd go grab their cornet and go to band rehearsal, or they would sing in a choral group, or bowl with the bowling league. And these sort of things are, I hate to say they're dying, but they are fading away, and we must do everything we can to grab hold of this, because I know for the people who play in my band, it is one of the most important social activities that they have over the week, is to see their friends and get to make music, and then to get to make that music with their other friends who don't play in the band, but who come to hear the concerts.
Right. Thank you, Mark. Absolutely. And Stephanie, please.
I think my biggest piece of advice is to use your resources of your local music educators, your local band directors, music teachers, college directors in the area. Get buy-in from them, supporting your band, being part of the band, and they will be your biggest asset as far as getting music, getting players, getting audience members, keeping that excitement alive in your community. They are the people to go to and to keep in your friend group. So yeah,
absolutely. Well, thank you. And we're just so glad that you could join us for this informative roundtable today. I want to absolutely thank our special guests, Sarah and Mark and Michael and Stephanie and Mark Rogers. Thank you so much for sharing all of what you do. And there's hours and hours and years and years of experience here. I know that everybody can reach out to you. You can find them on our website. If you can't get a hold of one of us in the executive team, we're happy to connect you with these 5 fantastic people and their wonderful bands. I would also like to offer special thanks to our ACB Connects team that are putting this all on behind the scenes. We're planning another roundtable discussion later this summer to talk about strategic planning and other topics related to running your band. Watch for the announcement of this special roundtable session. And it's not too late to register for the 2023 ACB convention in Orlando on May 17th through the 21st. You have a QR code at the bottom that you could right now use your phone to get yourself to that website. The playlist for the convention band has been selected, and a list of everything that's happening at the convention is now posted on the event website at acb2023.com. And we hope you will join us in Orlando. Each year, ACB holds a membership meeting open to all of you, all ACB members and members of ACB bands. And we will hold this meeting via Zoom on June 4th, 2 weeks following the ACB convention. All are welcome to listen, get updates from ACB officers, and just ask questions. For the links mentioned today, and to access all previously recorded sessions of ACB Connects, please visit our ACB website homepage at acbands.org. And there's also a QR code for that on this slide if you want to do it quickly. You'll also find information about becoming an ACB member if you're not yet, details on future sessions of ACB Connects, and a wealth of other resources. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Spotify, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you for being with us today for this special opportunity to form new connections. We look forward to having you join us again at ACB Connects. And until then, take care and happy music making. Bye.